Okay, today we're going to do some printmaking with styrofoam. You should have a sheet of styrofoam in your art kit, an ink pen. You might have to remove a little plastic red ball underneath of it so you can use your pen. You should also have a piece of cardboard so you can draw on top of that. You can see so far I have been drawing different types of lines, a zigzag, curvy, and now a dotted line. And you will see that your ink pen will go deep into the styrofoam. You want to be careful not to press too hard or you will rip the styrofoam. So be very careful. Start out lightly and then you can press a little harder. That's why the piece of cardboard that you use underneath it that came in your art kit also helps you because it's nice and stiff. I'm actually using a very stiff table, so my lines are really deep. I'm making another line at the very bottom. I'm making another zigzag, this time just a little bit bigger. And you can see that now I'm putting a pattern of hearts. And I go over it one time, kind of lightly, and then the second time you're able to really see my ink pen. Now it's time to change your pen color. You're changing your pen color because you need to go back over every single line. Just make sure that you're not pressing too hard. We're doing something called incising. When you incise, it makes it go deeper, and you want to make sure that you have a nice deep design so it prints really well. The next step is we're going to be adding color with markers. You can take a piece of tape and put it on the back of it to make sure that it doesn't move on you. It can also kind of backfire on you and it might not be necessary. I did both methods. Now what we're going to do is get our markers, and I actually am using Mr. Sketch markers. They're very juicy. They have a lot of ink in them. You do not have to use those. Crayola markers work just as well. Now here's the idea. We're going to be putting color on there and then we're going to place it right there in the left hand corner and print it. Then we'll do the same thing again in the right corner, the bottom left and the bottom right. Alright, now it's time for us to add some ink to our printing plate, and we're going to be using the markers to do that. I am starting with a blue color at the very top. I'm covering it with that ink, and it is going to probably stay wet for quite a while, and we want it to actually stay wet. And be very careful of your hands, and be careful when you use another color next to it. It's a good idea to kind of plan that out and just be very careful, but you want to make sure that you have enough ink on there. We will be using the sponge to wet our paper, and then that will help to reactivate all the ink that you put on your printing plate. Now I'm starting with the darker blue because if I get a little bit of the light blue on there, nothing's going to happen. It'll be just fine. So it's a good idea to kind of plan out where you're going to put your colors and just really kind of take your time, but don't be afraid to get a lot of ink on there because we need it to be able to transfer onto our piece of paper. Now I'm going to continue using the yellow and the dots. You notice that I didn't put it next to the zigzag. I could have, I just had to be very careful. I'm actually going to speed up the video and you're going to find out that I actually didn't color the whole printing plate. I decided not to color everything, and you're going to find out what happened when I did try to print it. Alright, here we go. It's time to speed things up. Alright, you can see how I finished inking my printing plate. You can see how careful I am by lifting off the printing plate from the piece of paper. I'm also carrying it by the edges. It was super hard to get it off that piece of paper without ripping it or getting a lot of ink on my hand. It also wasn't very easy to actually take the tape off. Now it's time to start thinking about where I'm going to put my printing plate. I'm going to start in the left hand corner, then go to the right hand corner, go to the two bottom corners. So my first one is going to be the left-hand corner. I'm going to grab my sponge with water, not soaking wet. It should not look super wet, and you can see in the very beginning it was a little shiny, but not very shiny. The next thing that I'm going to do, and I'm making sure that I just have that one section wet because it will start to curl, I'm going to grab the sides of my printing plate and I'm going to place it in the corner, and I'm going to make sure I know what the top is and what the bottom is. I'm lining it up corner to corner. I'm going to press it down, and I'm taking off this tape, and I'm actually thinking trying to do that might have wasted some time. You can see that I'm using my hand and I'm making sure that I don't press back and forth, and I cause it to give a ghost print. It kind of looks faded. So you really need to make sure that you press it down. I'm taking the piece of cardboard that you could have used to incise your piece of styrofoam in the very beginning. I'm pressing hard, massaging that piece of cardboard, and I have my fingers crossed that I'm going to get a really nice print. Now it's time for the big reveal. I've pressed it down. Hopefully I've pressed it down well enough. I'm going to pull it up from the corner, and it makes it a little bit easier to lift straight up, and you can see I didn't get such a great print. The orange area looks pretty good. You can also see there's a lot of ink still on my printing plate, and it looks like I need to try again. So you could take your printing plate, clean it off with a sponge, and then you could start over, or you could use the same colors again. So I'm trying again. I'm going back over everything. I did decide to actually change some things up just a little bit, not that drastically. And if you notice, I am going to cover the whole plate with ink. Now you can see my printing plate full of ink, a little bit shiny, and now it's time to take my piece of paper. If you don't have a second piece of paper, use your piece from your sketchbook, and I'm going to place it in the left-hand corner. I'm taking my sponge. I did put a little bit more water on there, and I'm only rubbing it in that left-hand corner, making sure I get that whole space, because it will not print very well, and you got to be careful. You don't want to rip this paper when you're trying to put the sponge on there. Taking it off, I'm going to pick up my plate. Be careful of your fingers. My fingers have tons of marker on them. Line it up corner to corner, kind of hover over, place it down, and do not move it again. I'm going to start really pressing down. I'm going to use the palm of my hand, and I'm going to start really laying that hand down flat to get a nice, good pressing. There it goes, pressing it finally, my palm, and to make sure all that ink is going to transfer. I'm pressing really hard to make sure this time it is going to transfer. Now it is time for us to pull the print. I'm going to crawl up there, pull the corner, and voila, look what I got. I got a beautiful print. Now it's time to make some decisions. Do I use the same colors, or do I use some colors in the same color family? Am I going to actually wipe it off with a sponge and start over? That's totally up to you. You could do a totally different color theme if you want to. I actually chose to keep some of the same colors, not exactly, to print on the top right-hand corner area. Alright, I'm super happy with this second print that's going to go on the top right hand corner, right next to the one on the left. I'm going to take that little bitty piece of something and sweep it out of the way. It's time to get my sponge and to rub water. Damp, it's not really soaking wet. Make sure you don't have that much water. and you're going to rub just on the right hand side. Don't rub on the left hand side. You're going to take your printing plate that's full of ink, hover above it, corner to corner. I start in that right hand corner and then just lay it down, and then you're going to start to apply that pressure. Press, press, press. Use the palm of your hand, use your fingers. I'm pushing it up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. And now it's time for me to start pressing with the palms of my hand, because you're going to get more surface area with that. Keep pressing it down. You can see that I didn't do too bad of a job lining it up. And it's just about time for us to start to pick it up and figure out how amazing of a print are we going to get this time. Lift straight up and voila, look at that. So I'm pretty happy how things lined up, and you can see I changed colors just a little bit. Now it's time to think about how I'm going to put them at the bottom. Am I going to flip it? Am I going to keep it the same? That's totally up to you. Well, this is what it looks like with them all printed. You can see that I have the blue at the very top, and then I flipped it and put the blue at the bottom. There is a bit of a shadow or ghost in the middle. It still looks really great. I'm super happy how this print came out. Now it's time to take your sketchbook out, and we're gonna write some kind words that have 4 letters in them. I'm writing the word love, I'm writing the word hope, writing the word kind, and writing the word wish, writing the word cool, and writing the word safe. Now we're going to take a piece of your sketchbook paper, we're going to fold it in half twice, really make sure that you crease it, and now we're going to take that one word and we're going to write each letter in each of those sections. We're going to place those letters in each section of your amazing print. I'm starting with the letter K, and I'm going to be writing the word kind. And make sure that you draw really big, really fat, and really chunky. I'm getting a little creative. I'm using a heart for the top of my eye. Now I'm going to draw the letter N for the word kind, and then the letter D to finish out the word kind. Now it's time to get those scissors out, and we need to do some cutting of these letters so we can place it on your amazing print that we made with a piece of styrofoam and markers. All right, the last step, we've cut out our letters. We're going to place them out on our paper or our table just to see what they look like. And don't forget, you could take your printed piece of paper and you could actually photocopy that on a printer or a copy machine so you have an extra copy. You're going to take your glue, and I wouldn't recommend gluing it on top of your amazing printed paper. Glue on the back of each letter, flip them over, and press really hard, and you're going to place them in each of these spaces of your printed piece of paper. And it looks fabulous. 2 thumbs up.